All right, some other things that they do with government relations. Sometimes they do things to make sure certain regulations that might hurt a certain company. They try to get some influence there. And this is an issue I have. I mean, some of you might also have, but it is part of the public relations industry is lobbying. This is where we hear about lobbyists from certain companies trying to talk to legislators or people who are close to legislators to change a certain policy that might help that company or that organization. All depends on what you're talking about. There's been lots of questions recently from a political standpoint that the lobbyists have to get out of politics. That's why we have a lot of the problems we have. But then you'll see those who do, quote unquote, play ball. They'll get lots of support and also somehow find more money in their campaign coffers. So, I mean, there's lots of aspects that are kind of shady with this. I mean, it kind of depends on the organization. Once again, depends on the organization, depends on on who it is, what they're lobbying. But lobbying has become a big part of public relations because it's part of what they do. They're trying to do the best they can for that specific company because they want the company to either succeed more or in some cases not die. Sometimes certain things could adversely affect a company that badly. So, and then there's stuff such as things called astroturf lobbying. Sometimes public relation firms they'll create what are seem to be grassroots campaigns, but they're really not. They're campaigns sponsored by these firms to help out their client in a way, but it looks like, oh, it's just this community uproar, and it really wasn't a community uproar. It was just some PR firm that created it for the company that they work for. So we have to be careful with that. There's a lot of that going on these days. Lots of there's some people out there that are said to have control over some very well-known groups out there that have other motivations and they're behind the scenes. So see, this is what I'm always talking about: being careful, listening, trying to filter out things and messages, because so much is coming at you, and who's making the message, and who the people who are pretending or who claim they are sometimes aren't, and they have other motivations. But this is part of the whole public relations side of the industry. This is part of what they some people do. We look at some, just to get an idea, between 2000 and 2015, lots of spending here. You've got the number of lobbyists and then how much spending is done. And between 2000 to 2015, it's dramatically increased. Now, the number of lobbyists has gone down, but the amount of money has more than doubled. All right, so that kind of tells you. So yeah, like 2000 there, you know, 12,000 lobbyists and 1.57 billion. But now we go down 2015. You've got less, but oh look, 3.22 billion. So that kind of shows you how the lobbyists have gained influence. And see, that's something else you kind of have to think about too when you're creating messages, and heck, even voting. What are these messages going out? Why are they going out? Part of it is because of lobbyists and the power that they have, and it's important. I mean, this is part of learning and becoming educated and becoming part of this industry and understanding the inner workings and messaging and messages and how powerful we are. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm just trying to tell you how it is. And, you have to be careful. You need to be careful out there. Don't think, because it's so easy to not think. Because a lot of people don't want you to think. makes their lives harder. All right. Now, since the public relations came into the web has done a lot, and public relations has been part of that. You're seeing lots of company websites. They become home bases for these PR efforts. Lots of different. You got your website. Oh, they've got tons and tons of PR stuff on there to put the company out there. It's the best place possible. Whole new venue. So when you come there, boom! Oh, we're the greatest. We are said company. We are great. This is what we do. And a list all the things that they're involved with, and you'll see the company and people from the company and videos and hugging children, or it might be. Oh, we are very concerned about said thing, and then you'll see an image for that, and then it becomes its own personal, whole personal like broadcast or own media outlet for themselves to promote whatever their company is. This also helps from interacting with the media. With communication, it's at a moment's notice, so they've had to adapt and then control. They need the whole part of PR is they need to control the messages, and sometimes what they do is they pay people. All right. Sometimes that's why I say stay away from Wikipedia, because sometimes you might not be getting wonderful information. Sometimes they hire people to do that, and then also the bloggers sometimes promote products and say, "Oh, I'm a reviewer of this," but they've been paid to specifically promote whatever that product is. So you got to be careful with when you're looking for certain products. I checked out the blogger. I always go to that person. You have to be careful, because sometimes they're not just someone who's really into it that wants to do things like that. Sometimes they're actually paid by a PR firm for a company to make sure people, I'm getting great reviews, and they're getting great reviews because they're paying for the great reviews. So that's another aspect you have to deal with. Couple instances in the history of public relations when it comes to a couple of very big news stories. One was Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989. I remember that. I was in high school. That was my senior year. That was my senior year. That was a terrible oil spill, but the big difference between that and the BP oil spill, from what you might not forget so much because it was April 2010, so it was about 10 years ago. You might have still been young, but you might have known about it. The big thing is Exxon Valdez. Exxon was very forthcoming. They were very apologetic. They tried to work real hard on making sure that they were making amends and cleanup was happening, and they were very humble about it. And they understood the brevity of the situation, and they knew it was bad, and their public relations got ahead of it, and they took the right steps. And Exxon was able to recover from that. BP, on the other hand, did not. They did a terrible job. They were not nearly as empathetic as they should have been, especially the CEO. He came off as rather callous, and you couldn't really come back from that. They're still around, but it's been taking a long time for them to come back from that. And then also in 1982, there was a Tylenol scare. I remember this. I was like 11 years old, 10 years old. I was born in November, so it was probably about 10 when it first happened. As soon as they found out, there were people who put lacing it with cyanide. Yeah, there was some people got sick, and some people died. They were quick on top of that. They were like, we messed up. We didn't know what happened. We're going to go out there. They took them all off. They created more secure bottles. They were right on top of that. So you see in times of crisis the difference between the two, between good and bad. Now, here we go to what I'm kind of used to. There's definitely tension between us, the press, and the public relations. A lot of it is because, like I said, um, the press wants to get at the at the complete story, the truth, what's going on. Um, they don't want painted pictures for them. They just want, through their own research. And if you're a good journalist, you do it through your own research and what you can find and what you can prove and what and to build that story. But then on the other side, you have public relations that wants to sometimes see a certain reality or see a certain thing. So we can see where they can be knocking heads. Lots of times, you'll have sometimes you'll get issues with public relations agents and dealing with the media, and sometimes it's also the fact that sometimes with public relations of businesses, they're doing publicity, and they want you to, we expect you to be at every event, and this is big news, and the news is like, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and depending on any given day, we may or may not be able to attend that event. And sometimes it rubs the public relations the wrong way, but because they might even be a big factor within the community, and a big presence. So it all depends. It depends, but there's always been lots of tension between the two because of what one does and what the other does, and it's always kind of butted heads for a long time. Now, there's the PRSA. This is trying to make sure the image of public relations is okay, and they want, so they have a set of ideals and a set of codes that they want the public relations industry to follow through. That is a watchdog group. This is also, you need to be accredited as agents within firms. Like I said, they have a code of ethics and making sure people stand by these ethics and do these morally and professional codes, live up to them. And some of the professional values are advocacy, honesty, expertise, independence, loyalty, and fairness. All these things. This is what the PSRA, if you become public relations and you get deep into the industry, these are the things that are expected of you within that industry. Sometimes it can be difficult, depending on who your client is or who your business is or whatever. But if you follow these, you probably do a lot better job and do a better job for yourself and for that company or client or whatever the case may be. Alternative voices, basically, you're going to find that what goes on in PR, you don't hear about it too often. Lots of times we do work very close with it. So that's, so that you're not necessarily going to hear about the inner workings of public relations. Heck, TV and media and other news outlets have PR firms and media firms and PR firms too. So who are they to talk? But also, and they work pretty closely together. Sometimes things they kind of just go to the side. There are some books out there that you can check out. Best War Ever, Toxic Sludge is Good for You, Mad Cow USA, all things kind of telling you how they've worked in different instances over the course of years for different industries and what their strategies were, what the results were. So those are some of the bigger things that are out there about public relations. Well, and the simple truth is that certain politicians do hire PR firms. They improve their images. Those campaigns result in the free media exposure, but it does raise questions. Democracy, expression of ideas, and as journalists, we need to become less willing to be conduits. We have to pay attention, making sure this isn't it's on us. We have to have that critical thinking ability. That's the important aspect of being a journalist. You have to be good with critical thinking. And not be taken advantage of and being duped into thinking, this is not really a news story, but it's more a PR stunt. So, public relations has been around a long time. will continue to be around a long time, and it's definitely a track that many people follow and is needed for any number of organizations and companies and people out there that deal with the general public. All right. And okay, that's all I got for you today. Thanks.